Welcome to Shrimperscast with me, Steve Mansfield.
And me, Paul Hill. On today's show,
Battling Blues beaten by attacking Altrincham, ending unbeaten run.
We've got the inside track on the council's meeting last Thursday with Cllr Matt Dent.
Paul and Will fanboy it up with Blues and Forest legend Jason Lee.
And we look forward to League Leaders Chesterfield visiting Roots Hall this Saturday.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Shrimperscast. I'm sat here with Paul. How you doing, Paul?
All the better for seeing you, Steve. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks, mate. Not too bad. I've had a couple of sleepless nights. Actually, the dog's been unwell. He's yeah, not nice when pets are ill. Poor Bob downstairs.
Bob.
Bob. Hopefully, he doesn't interrupt the recording with his wailing. But little Bob.
Mate, I love pets with like real world names, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
Bob. You know, my cat's called Steve.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. After
me?
No, after Steve Tilson.
Oh, right.
Yeah, because when we got Steve, right, we just took this cat on. It was like a little ball of fur. It was brilliant. And we were told that Steve was a girl, so we called her Tilly after Steve Tilson.
Okay.
It wasn't until we had to take her to the vet, or him at the time, to the vets to, get the spade done, where I dropped the cat off. Walked round the corner, the vet's called me up and went, yeah, mate, your cat, Tilly. I was like, yeah, ain't a girl, it's a boy. I was like, oh, no. So, turns out, we kept the name Steve because it's Steve Tilson's. Great name for a cat, isn't it?
Well, Steve is a strong name, I have to say. All the best people.
Well, yeah, of course.
Best people and best felines are called Steve, for sure. So, Altrincham away at the weekend, Paul. Another tricky encounter on the road. Didn't end in the best result for Blues, did it? 2-0 loss. None of us could make it to the game. A bit of a journey up there near Manchester, basically. But you managed to catch up with our man in the stand.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, and like I say, it is a bit of a boot up there, up north, and we couldn't make it unfortunately. But for a disappointing result, we did have our fan in the stand though, who can tell us all about it. So here we go. Here's Pip. Good morning, Pip. How are you keeping, mate? Hope all is well. And, a long old boot up to Altrincham over the weekend. So, how was your trip?
Good morning, Paul, and good morning to fellow shrimpers listening in to this amazing podcast. My name is Diversity, and I am that silly fellow that follows Blues up and down the country, recording it for a job. How was getting up to Altrincham, you say? Well, I got public transport this time round, just because I thought I'd give me car a rest for the weekend. Got the train up from Reading, had to do a few changes, but by God, I'm never doing public transport again. It was horrid. Shoulder to shoulder, travelling all the way up to Altrincham, no seats available. Even when you're getting off the train, it's just a mess. I think I'm sticking to the motorways next time.
Yes, mate, those trains, they can be a bit hit and miss, can't they? But massive away support again, following the boys on the road, but, not the best result. So how was that first half?
We seem to touch on it almost every week now, Paul. Our away support is class, whether it's local at Dagenham, Redbridge, or all the way up in Altrincham or Halifax. It is literally top class following. But on a side note, the Altrincham Stadium for away fans is absolutely horrid. All the noise you make just gets drained out into the open air, plus no drum allowed on the day. Didn't help, but I'm sure the boys heard us being loud and proud throughout the game. But in terms of first halves, I suppose it wasn't really one that was up to our usual standards. After the 2 weeks off, you expected us to come out all guns blazing and firing, and it just seemed a little bit on the back burner, just waiting for Altrincham to make that mistake. Understand they're high up in the table, they play high possession football and hit you really quickly on the counter, but I don't think it was up to our normal standard, unfortunately.
Yes, and it was also disappointing to concede that first goal early on in the second half as well, wasn't it? So did that knock the wind out of our sails a little bit?
Yeah, that first goal really was a big sting in the side. You could just tell they came out in the second half, Altrincham this is, and just wanted that first goal. They could sense that we were off a little bit, and Dave Mine had a busy first half anyway. But I think it almost woke us up a bit. It almost made us alert, like, right, we've got to go forward. We've got to oppress them now. And it did. We went forward. Cardwell had that massive chance one-on-one, and to be fair to Ross, he did make that great save, the Altrincham keeper. But It didn't really kick on much after. It was a lot of puff and effort, but it just wasn't hitting the target enough or threatening the goalie. And then Altrincham obviously made it 2-0 late on, and that just sunk it all down.
Yes, mate, that was a real stinger there in the 88th minute. So, talk us through it.
I've briefly touched on it already, but yeah, after the Altrincham second goal, it just killed us off completely. And to be fair to Altrincham, they did deserve the win. They play a very similar style of football to us, on the ground, quick passing, nimble feet, and it worked against us. We didn't seem to be on our usual game, and after the 2-0 goal, we just admitted defeat. Didn't completely cave in, but it was just one of those days where you have to admit Altrincham were the better side, and you just hold your hands up and go, move on to the next game.
Yes, and we look forward to that Chesterfield game at home, and hopefully we'll have a decent referee, because we did see some chatter about some classic National League refereeing. So, was it all that bad?
You'll have to forgive me, Chaz, but I don't actually remember too much about the ref from Saturday. But I suppose we could say that's a good thing, considering some of the referees we've had this season, like at Halifax, for example, with that bizarre red card. Some of the home games, we've had some really bizarre refs. But no, I'd say the ref we had on Saturday, I can't remember too much about him. So I suppose I'm going to look at that as a good thing, that he must have been an okay ref. Probably made an iffy call here or there. Someone's probably yelling at their screen now as I'm saying this. He made this wrong decision. So I do apologise, but I'd say it was all right.
So, is there any injuries to report there, Pip, ahead of our crucial crunch game at home to Chesterfield?
The only injury I saw from the game, and it's really quite a worrying one, was that on the 90th minute, Noor went down with, I guess, cramp in his leg, had his leg held up high by an opposition player, which was fair play. I can't remember what number he was, but an Altrincham player held up Noor's leg whilst he was lying on the floor, obviously due to an injury. So that was the only one really I saw. But besides that, it was great to see Dave Martin returning from injury, and I'd say he had a man-of-the-match performance on that note. He came back into a squad which he hadn't played in for weeks now and made unbelievable saves, controlled the back line well, and it was just a shame, really, on conceding the 2 goals, as I felt he really could have deserved a clean sheet.
Well, that's great news there, Pip. We're hearing that Noor isn't travelling with the Afghan team for their qualifiers, as there's a boycott, so gives him a little bit more rest, doesn't it? And hopefully he will be fresh for that home game against Chesterfield. And of course, having Mr. Martin back in the sticks there, pulling off such a great performance in the game is, that's going to fill me with a little bit of confidence heading to that game at Roots Hall. Well, thanks again, Pip, as ever.
Paul, been amazing chatting to you today, matey. Thank you for listening to all you lovely people behind your screens and monitors. Hopefully we will see you all on Saturday for a big following versus Chesterfield. My name's been Diversity. Thank you as ever.
We look forward to seeing you at the Hall on Saturday.
Massive thanks to our man Pip, aka Diversity. We always like to give our guests a little plug, so if you don't follow him, he's got a great YouTube channel where he does a video blog from every game, home and away, and that's over on YouTube at Diversity, which is diversity but with a 1 instead of an I.
Indeed. Yeah. Thanks again, Pip. But, it's disappointing, isn't it, that result? We had that break. We thought it might work well for us.
Yeah.
Because the physical toils and the mental break as well, we thought, might do us well. But sometimes, though, I find if you have a break, it can actually take the momentum out yourselves a little bit. And I feel that's what kind of happened here. It wasn't the best pitch, really, was it? And it wasn't the most prettiest of games. But, back at home, Chesterfield coming up, get the momentum back going, should put us in good stead in that run into Christmas.
Paul, you've been a busy boy this week for the podcast. You've been a busy boy outside of the podcast, and just to add to the stress of your life, you've been busy for the podcast as well. So what have you got lined up for us today?
Well, I had a blinding week. It's never a stress with the podcast. So first things, we met with Jason Lee.
Okay.
It was a great chat with Jason. And we've got the whole interview coming up. But also, due to what's been going on in the council and with regards to the land transactions over at Roots Hall and Fossett's Farm, I managed to get hold of our man on the inside, Mr. Matt Dent, and got a little interview with him about what had been going on in the walls of the council.
Brilliant. Nice one. Well, thanks for sorting those two out. So, we'll have Jason Lee later on in the show, so stay tuned for that. But for now, let's have a little listen to Paul's chat with Cllr Matt Dent.
So, hello, Matt. How's things? How you been?
Not bad, Paul. Not bad. Good to speak to you again.
Always good to talk to you, sir. Our man on the inside at the council, and it has been a busy week, hasn't it? So, Yeah, with the big meeting
yeah.
going on. So I don't suppose you've got a bit of an update for us, have you?
Yeah, so on Thursday night, the Cabinet discussed an item about Foss's Farm and everything going on with that. Now, my understanding is that the takeover is still progressing through the legal hoops it has to jump through. But one of the things is the deal with the council regarding the land at Fossett's, what was going to be the stadium, and obviously now Southend are going to be staying at Roots Hall. So as part of the takeover deal, Ron Martin wanted to put extra housing on what was going to be the stadium, and because it is a deal jointly with the council, the cabinet needed to approve that for it to go forward. And I mean, the paper was taken fairly urgently at the cabinet and was agreed. And it will still have to go through planning permission and all that, but this was the sort of legal side of it as the joint deal. And the real thing is that this was effectively the price of Ron Martin agreeing the takeover deal, was that he gets this. I think it's fair to say there's a lot of people in Southend who won't be fond of Rob Martin making another buck out of all of this. But realistically, as I said to you last time when we spoke, the cards were all in his hand, and it was for him to, make the deal to save Southend United. And this was sort of, what was needed to get it over the line. It went through cabinet without any problems at all. The entire council is united in wanting to save the football club. So, from that perspective, it was a no-brainer. But what it means now is that hopefully in the next couple of weeks, all the legal T's will be crossed and lowercase j's dotted, and we can finally close this pretty miserable chapter in Southend United's history and move on to the better things that we all know the club is more than capable of.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. Yeah, we are. And indeed, we are looking forward to that. And, well, more than anything, I think signing some players as well, getting that embargo lifted.
Absolutely. That's got to be the first priority, really. I mean, we can't be carrying on with games where we can barely field a full team. And, if you look at the results in recent games, today's notwithstanding, they've gone on a fantastic run of form, which is incredible. You think about what they've been up against as a team. Yeah, I mean, Kevin Mayer's worked absolute miracles with that team, and it's really paid off. And I think between that and the hard work of the fans trying to get this saved, the consortium and Justin Rees have been more than willing to come in and do what's needed. And in order to get Ron Martin on the right page and moving things along, the council has had to do its bit, and I'm pleased that, after the motion that we debated, we all agreed that we needed to work to save Southend United. This is the tangible evidence of Southend Council standing up with the fans and with those who want to save the club.
Absolutely. Brilliant stuff. And I did read somewhere, maybe you might be able to clarify this for me as well, but there's some pockets of land as well, isn't there, around Roots Hall that Ron is still owning, things like the club shop. And I hear that the council actually have a little bit of land as well there around Roots Hall. Do you know what's going on there? Will that be folded into the new consortium part of Roots Hall?
My understanding is that the deal with this extra housing that Ron's going to get the opportunity to build at Fossett's, it will mean that the consortium will get the land they need and around Roots Hall and be able to be in a position to be able to start refurbishing it over the next few years. I think the idea is to do one stand at a time and sort of, gradually improve it, because, it's a great ground. There's loads of history there, but I don't think any of us can deny, having been to watch games there, that it needs a bit of work to bring it up to standard in 2023. So, yeah, I mean, it's really positive in that with Roots Hall's future now set as the home of the team going forward, we need to, and we're going to be able to bring it up to the standard that we need, that we need for a club going into a new chapter, a new era, and lots more success, we hope.
Yeah, 100%. And you're right, the ground does need developing. We need that infrastructure in place, don't we? A solid stadium, a safe stadium
Definitely.
as well.
Absolutely. I mean, we saw with the drama at the beginning of the season whether whether we're going to get that safety certificate done in time. The fans all turning out to clean the stadium, make it ready. I think what's happened basically is, as long as I've been in Southend and longer, I know the idea of a new stadium at Fossett's has been hanging there, and the end result of that has been that Roots Hall has not got the investment it needs to keep up as a ground in the 21st century. Now, the consortium certainly are saying they want to change that. They're going to make sure that we get that investment and that the improvements are made. It's not going to be overnight, obviously. That's not how these things work. But, having that will to make the difference and to have the necessary pride in Roots Hall as the home of Southend United is definitely a positive move.
Excellent. Yes, absolutely. And I mean, when Ron was putting in his plans for the new plans for the stadium and getting that planning permission in place, it just dragged on, and it took forever. I don't know if that was him dragging his heels through, not getting his paperwork in time.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it, that things with Ron Martin do tend to drag on a bit.
Yes, indeed they do. But what would be, say, they wanted to redevelop, say, the East Stand, for example, and how quick is that turnaround from putting that application in to then getting it signed off and then the ground being broken?
I mean, the turnaround should be pretty quick. I mean, my understanding is that the delays around, the plans of the previous stadium were Ron making up his mind and getting the relevant forms in. What I've seen so far from the consortium is that they are, able to move quite quickly and decisively. So with that in mind, I wouldn't rule out being in a position where after this season, over the summer break, we could start the works the necessary. But I mean, it will all depend on what plans are put in. Planning law is what planning law is, and we can get that through. And we want to get that through as quick as possible, at the same time as making sure it's the right plan for the stadium, for the team, to take us into the future.
There we go. I wish I could see into the future with my wife just walking in there, but so apologies for that. She just, I think she forgot we were on a call there. But she's just let me know.
It's not a chat without Liz making an appearance. But no, fantastic to talk to you. And look, for all the Southend United fans listening out there, I can absolutely understand there's a lot of nervousness around this deal. It's not quite over the line yet. It's inching closer. And I just want to reassure everyone that this agreement by the council is purely for the purpose of getting that deal over the line, getting it agreed, getting everything signed off so that the fans can breathe a massive sigh of relief and get on with supporting their local team.
All we want to do. That's great stuff.
Absolutely.
Well, Matt, I really appreciate the update, and it'll be great to get you back on.
Absolutely.
When we hear more and we need that kind of, the inside intel, we know who to come to, sir.
Absolutely. Always happy to talk to you, Paul.
And you, Squire. Brilliant. Thanks for coming on, mate, and have a great week, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Massive thanks there to Matt Dent, as ever, always willing to come on the show and talk through the technicalities of some of the stuff that's going on connected to the consortium. Paul, is there anything in particular that stood out from your chat with him this time?
Well, no, just the whole thing, just to be informed with Matt. I mean, he's like you say, always happy to give a time and let us all know what is going on. But what was really stood out for me, I think, is when all the planning applications that Ron had put in, they seemed to take forever, didn't it? Weeks and months, and nothing really got going, and it felt like it was just really slow. But with Matt saying, it won't take long with the consortium when they put their applications through. It's going to be quick. They're going to develop stand by stand. It just gave me a lot of confidence. The council are really behind this.
Yeah,
they really are invested, which is we need that, don't we? And things are looking good.
I think there's a bit of a theme, isn't there? Like, most of the fans are probably getting a little bit twitchy. Like, there's not much news, and sometimes that can lead to kind of nerves, I guess, amongst the fan base. But every time we've kind of had someone in the know on, or someone with experience of this type of stuff, for example, the journalist that I interviewed last week, Matt Slater, who, if you haven't listened to that, I really recommend going back. We put the full thing out as well last week. He's got a lot of insight. He covers loads of these sort of takeovers. But the message that he had for us, and I guess, you know, when you talk to Matt Dent, is kind of stay calm. These guys are serious. They've got the chops to do it and get it done. And, you know, it's just a matter of time. So we are kind of, I guess, getting a bit more confidence, like you say, from these chats that we have with people. So yeah, brilliant. Thanks a lot for doing that, Paul. So we're going to move on now to our ex-player interview. And this guy. So yourself and our other producer Will did this, and Will's a Forest fan.
He is.
So this guy is a Southend and Forest legend.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And you know, you're a big fan of Jason Lee. That's you know, I'm right in thinking that's your era, right? The Jason Lee, Stan Collymore, those years, and you know, watching Blues back then. That's when you fell in love. So how was it to kind of sit down and chat in depth? I know you've met Jason before with your other work for Show Races and the Red Card, but how was it to sit down and kind of talk Blues with him?
It was great just to get that insight because that period of time for Southend United was so explosive. The Barry Fry era, you know, the way he brought his players in, and we were, well, unbeatable, you know. And as Jason says in his interview, they thought they could beat anyone, and they did. There was that period of time in the first half of the season where they were pulling up trees. It was fantastic, you know. But it was just great to hear from his perspective of playing for Southend at the time. What was it like playing under Barry Fryer? As we all know, a huge character, isn't he? So it was, fantastic chat. And just to sit down with the next player I mean, he went on to have a great career, didn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, over 600 odd games and goals, scored some incredible goals. And like you say, he is a legend up in Nottingham Way. Played for Forest and Notts County. Yeah. So, you know, but it was just great. Absolutely superb. He spoke really well about his time at the Blues. And, can't wait for you all to hear it.
Well, let's have a little listen now then.
So, welcome to Shrimperscast. And I'm joined today by our producer, Will. And we're quite excited about this one, aren't we, Will? Because you being a Nottingham Forest fan and me being a Southend fan, I mean, we could only get one massive 90s hero that's played for both squads onto the pod today. And we're really excited to say hello to Mr. Jason Lee. Hello, Jason. How are you?
Good afternoon, man. Thank you for having me. Well, there's two. You obviously got Stan as well. He did both, so...
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yeah.
I thought you were going to introduce Stan Collymore for a second then.
Yeah, let's not forget Stan as well. So now this, and I was grateful and very happy to play for both clubs. So fantastic times.
Brilliant. And Bob, thank you for coming on and talking with us today. We really appreciate it. And that's Southend. So you were with us for a short bit of time, wasn't it? About 24 games, I think you played for us back in the 90s. And you've played over 650 league games, scoring over 100 goals with about 18 clubs, a coach, a manager, and you have a podcast as well. So a proper footballing man, aren't you, sir?
Yeah, I've been around. I've done the journey. I work with current and former players, and you all hope when you start out that you're going to have a long career, but lots of things can happen. So if anyone was to say to me I'd have had a 20-year career when I first started out, I'd have been more than grateful, more than happy. So listen, when players, I've been to two clubs this week and been with some scholars, and I've congratulated them on the fact that they've already achieved more than, you know, a large percentage of people out there wanting to progress into professional football. So, you know, for them to get a scholarship, which is what I did when I started at Charlton, 2-year scholarship, that's the start of your journey. That's the first pro contract that you sign, and then after that, you're hoping to earn new contracts, whether they be a year, 2 year, 3 year, and that's the continued cycle. You know, you get to Christmas every year, and you're kind of stressing and worried about, you know, if you're gonna get a renewal of your contract or whatever it may be. So, and then there's injuries and there's other things that can play a part. So, to have 21 years as a pro and then coach for 10 years and have a short spell of management, yeah, I've more than fulfilled really what I set out to achieve. I did have little benchmarks. One was to sign a scholarship. One was to make a first team debut. You know, get a move, play at the highest level, tick, 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 play across all the divisions. Yeah, more than happy. But short stint at Southend. If we're going to go back to that, I started at Charlton, made my debut at Charlton at 17. didn't really establish myself in and around the first team. You know, we had young players anyway at the time that was playing. It was First Division then, which is now the Premier League. Club was struggling, you know, fighting to stay in the top flight. I was sold to Lincoln City, where I did 2 years, played 90+ games, which was a real baptism of fire, but a really good education for myself to go and play full-time football at a young age. Always advocate for young players to go and do that. Put myself back on the map, really alerted people to the fact that there's a young player. There was lots of clubs that was interested in myself, Julian Joachim, there was lots of players of a similar age, Dion Dublin. And I was linked with a lot of clubs whilst I was at Lincoln. So when Southend came calling, and it would be 92, the pre-season of 92, you know, lots of strikers, myself, Tommy Mooney, Gary Jones, you know, Brett Angel was still there, Chris Powell was there. You know, I'm sure we'll get to that later on, but a really fantastic young group of players. The majority of it was from Barnet. Very before I knew what I was about, having played against him a number of times, always scored against Barnet. So that was a team and a manager that I knew really well. So I'm pretty sure he thought, well, you know, if there's anybody I'm going to sign from lower league, it's going to be myself and maybe Tommy Mooney, who was doing really well at Scarborough at the time. So the move to leave Lincoln, which was 4th Division then, to join Southend, which was Championship, was a no-brainer. You know, it was something that I really wanted to do. I wanted to come back to London as well, being from London, having been away from London for a few years. It was a great opportunity for me to come back to Southend, but I just wasn't there long. You know, I got off to a really good start. Pre-season, scored a hat-trick. Missed the first 2 games of the season, which is a story in itself, verified to this day. You know, didn't do his due diligence. You know, he signed me, but I was serving a suspension. And I remember I told this story to a lot of people, but typical Barry, and I played for him twice, so I know him really well. He signs me and he's building me up during the pre-season. I scored a hat-trick and we're getting to the first game of the season, which is Nottingham Forest, live on TV. And we're getting to the week of the game and, you know, he's still talking like I'm going to be playing in the, you know, and starting the game. And I'm thinking, at some point, someone, well, it's going to have to be me, right? I'm going to have to remind him of the fact that I'm actually not available for the first game. So I remember saying to him, Baz, you realise I'm not available for the first game. So you can imagine, like, the expletives, the effing and blinding, like, I can't believe, you know, all the years I've been in management, this has never happened to me. I'm laughing. I'm thinking, listen, it's not my point to tell you I wanted this deal to go through. Obviously, I wanted to come and play for the club, but I'm not available for the first 2 games. So that was that. That wasn't a great start in terms of missing the first game. We got the draw. Andy Sussex scored 1-1. And I think there was another game. And then, yeah, my first game was Millwall live on TV again. The big match or whatever it was, matching it back in the day. I think it was Brian Moore commentating. And I got MOM, scored, had a really good game. Welcome to the new den. It was a great welcome. We went there and smashed them 3-1. It could have been more. Or was it 4-1? 4-1.
Yeah, 4-1. Yeah.
4-1. Me, Tommy Mooney, Andy Ansah. Who else scored? Oh, Wiki Otto. You know, we just went there, put on a really good display, marked our cards, let the league know that, you know, we meant business. Me and Brett Angel played up top on that day, so real handful. Ricky was phenomenal that season. And I've mentioned a little bit of snapshot of some of the players that was in and around that squad. Really talented group of players, hungry. You know, I thought we was going to be the new Wimbledon. The way we was attacking teams, the way we was going and beating teams away, Sunderland, Middlesbrough, Wolves, all the big clubs, they meant nothing to us. We just went there and embraced it and went and got results. And I think we was overachieving, to be perfectly honest. Vic Jobson was the chairman. We was doing really well, 3rd in the league, you know. I think we're getting to September, October. And pretty much what's been the story of Southend over the years, financial issues, even then, you know, with this. We're talking about, you know, not paying us, our money was going to be late. I think the real worry was that this group of players might actually get promoted. And we haven't got the infrastructure. We're not actually in a place that maybe we kind of envisaged that happening. We're going to have to renew all contracts. It's going to cost a bit of money. Might have to spend some money on the stadium. We was excited to do that as a group of players. You don't worry about the financial aspects off the field of play. You just want to go and win games and do the best you can. So when we realised that, wow, our aspirations as players is not actually being matched by the hierarchy at the club, not the supporters. The fans are obviously loving it, but the owner and people, the financial part of the institution was, I think, flapping around a little bit, thinking this could be a problem. So we had issues. Obviously, Baz left, went to Birmingham. The team got broke up. And as I said, I was only there short and sharp. Same season, I was sold to Nottingham Forest in the March. I could have left before Christmas. Barry tried to sell me to a Belgian club. I mean, that's another story that, I just flatly refused. I wasn't interested because we was due our first child, and I've got the snippet, and it's on my Instagram that I put on. That money's not everything, because I just remember the fact that, listen, as clubs, as managers do, that if a good offer comes in for a player, they accept it. Then the pressure's on to try and get that player to go and do the deal. But I remember Baz ringing me and saying, "Look, fantastic offer. You're probably chopping your wages. It's going to be a great deal. Blah blah blah." I just wasn't interested. We not long moved into a house. It was probably October. I signed in December. It's probably October, and yet, there's an opportunity for me to leave the club. And although I left in March, I certainly didn't want to go and live in another country. Do you know what I mean? So I just thought, no, I'm not going to do that. I was frozen out a little bit, as you do. I got the treatment, played in the reserves, had to work my way back into the squad. And the irony of it is that Barry left anyway, didn't he? So Baz went to Birmingham. Yeah. As you do. He jumped ship, didn't he? He got out, he jumped out of that boat. He went to Birmingham. And then Birmingham came back, and we battered them as well. That
3-1. Yeah.
We battered them. It was a fantastic environment. I mean, the atmosphere was really good that day. It was villain of the piece. But listen, I love Barry Fry. He knows that. Hence, that's why I played for him later in my career. But it was a short, sweet experience being at Southend, because there were some lifelong friends that I've made from that experience. I knew Chrissy Powell before, and Andy Anson before I arrived at Southend, because they was at Palace and I was at Charlton. So there was always those connections. But, someone like Tommy Mooney, lifelong friend. I saw Payne recently. I've always spoke to Payne. He's a real character. There's Bodley. I could go through the group. Young group of players, fantastic group of people, and a really good club. So I know we'll talk about it later on. To see the club not in the league now and suffering is not something that I've kind of enjoyed witnessing, really.
It's definitely been tough. And, with Vic Jobson, and Ron Martin, there's certain parallels there, I'm sure, but I'm sure we'll touch on them a little bit later. But I mean, like you say, though, some of those games, some of those teams in that division that we built. I mean, I was 12, 13 at the time, really getting into Southend United and watching the Millwall game at the New Den, 4-1. I mean, some of those games, the teams in that division at the time, they weren't small clubs, were they? You had Stoke with Mark Steen and Dave Regis as well, who went on to play for Southend, and Martin Carruthers. And then, Leicester as well, when they were a big team. Derby, who I think we beat them as well, didn't we, away on the road? Is it?
Listen, there was nobody that we feared, and as you said, some bigger clubs. But Southend was considered to be, I don't know if they were considered to be punching above their weight, but I certainly felt Southend could equip themselves at that level. Season in, season out, and they did manage to do that. At times it was very difficult, but I think it's a club that can attract, good players. From the London catchment area, those especially out on loan and this, that and the other. Stan went down on loan from Palace. As I said, if you do your recruitment and you do your homework, there's no reason why Southend couldn't compete. It was just, as I said, some clubs, they're not ready to make that leap. There are clubs that play in the higher leagues that you take it and it surprises everybody. Walsall playing in the Championship, Scunthorpe playing in the Championship. No disrespect to these clubs. They're punching above their weight. The infrastructure is not there. Scunthorpe have gone out of the league. So, it's not unfamiliar. Notts County, who I played for, they dropped out of the league. Grimsby Town, they was playing in the same division at the time, Southend Championship. It's just these teams find problems. It's just poorly run businesses. Lots of football clubs, they're not looked at or run in the same way as we would run any other organisation. It's run by your heart, and there's so many people that support a football club that want you to do more, maybe stretch. And it's about just getting the balance really and making sure your fan base understand that, you know, we're cutting our cloth and here's where we are. I think if you're transparent and honest with your fan base all the time about what your aspirations are and what we can actually do, then I think people understand. But sometimes people come in on a white horse and they promise you the world. And that in itself brings just false hope. And then when it goes wrong, you know, it's really, really disappointing for a lot of people. So we have to be really careful. We have to safeguard these institutions and these clubs because they mean so much to the community, and people have followed these clubs for years and years. People come and go within a football club, players and owners and this, that and the other. But Southend, as I said, is a fantastic club, and, you know, they deserve to be playing, you know, in the league at least, and they deserve to be playing at a decent level. So, you know, fingers crossed, I'm hopeful.
Yes. Fingers crossed we do get back there. I mean, there was a time we were dreaming of the Prem. You know, I remember, was it Christmas? Charlton, your old club at home, and it was it 4-2 as well? And that game had it all, didn't it? I think it was two or three sending offs. You should have had a couple of goals, if I remember. And,
well, I did score in that game, but the thing is, as you said, you're playing against these teams, and we had no fear. And as far as we were concerned, we was all young when we signed under Baz. You know, he didn't have to sell the dream, but he had players who had been playing at a lower level who wanted to play and thought we could do better and wanted to play at the best level. So beating these teams for us wasn't a real surprise. We built some really good momentum that season. As I said, I felt that we could have easily been the next Wimbledon. We had that sort of mentality, you know. The things we were doing, the antics that we was getting up to was, you know, it was ridiculous. I'm sure the players won't mind me saying I wasn't one of those, but, you know, Baz had this way of saying, especially when he managed at Barnet, that, you know, on a Friday you get to the hotel, you'd be playing away from home, do what you want. Just, you know, make sure you perform tomorrow. So players would be off, they would be out, you know, be doing whatever. And, you know, you had no excuses. Just make sure you turn up, you know, be there at breakfast and be ready come the whistle, because if you want to play hard, you know, work hard, play hard, you're going to have to produce. So the players really enjoyed that, especially those Barnet players who were kind of used to that. For myself, who've been a consummate professional, being at Lincoln, not seeing that, I was like a little bit shocked by that. And I didn't buy into that. And I knew about it because I remember Barry Five bringing Barnet to Lincoln when they just got back into the league. And it was all around town that they'd all been out the night before and they're playing us the next day. So, you know, we were stoked up. We thought Barnet had just come into the league, and disrespectful. You know, they're having a jolly up and they're playing us. Mate, they beat us 6-0. I stood on the halfway line. I was fuming. Like, I couldn't get a touch of the ball. They was unbelievable. Payne, Gary Ball up top. You know, some of the same players who I said I ended up playing with, Bodley and this, that and the other. David Howes, you know, he was like player coach. I'm thinking they're taking the piss, like literally. But they had that spirit. You could tell they had that spirit, and I knew what that spirit was when I arrived at Southend because I saw it.
It was vodka.
It was that. But just listen. Regardless, forget all that. When the whistle blows, we know what we're about. You know, we love our football, and we'll have a go, and we'll die for each other. And that spirit. It's hard to recreate that. So these clubs that do it, the Wimbledons and clubs that go on to achieve, you don't achieve without a really good bond and a really good change.
Jace, how much does it affect a player knowing what's going on behind the scenes with like financial side of things? You touched upon the fact that you're obviously aware if you're not getting paid, but like does it create bad morale, and how has it affected you over your career?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, going back to Southend when it all started to implode and you knew it was coming to an end. As I said, it was short and sharp. The fact that we wasn't getting paid, that's a problem. You know, like why and how? How is that the case? I remember we was having meetings. We was talking about like literally striking and boycotting and not playing. I mean, who does that affect? That pisses everyone off. That affects the fans, right? But you're taking liberties. We've got bills to pay, and you're saying we're not going to get paid, and we're 2 weeks late. And come on, like where's our money? There was even like shortage of kit and this, that, and the other, and you just thought, and we're a team that was doing well. So, as I said, and you touched on it. It does start to erode what you've built. And as I said, that the manager obviously knew what was going on. And then when we see obviously Barry leave and go to Birmingham, and we knew we had talented players, you just knew it was going to get picked off because the club was desperate to obviously bring in the money. You know, I could have been sold a number of times in my short time there, and I did leave anyway. So the club obviously wanted the money, needed the money. So you just know, like, you're kind of wasting the time in that respect. What can you do? The players that had to stay there, Chrissy Powell, really good professional. Ricky Otto stayed there, went to Birmingham the following season for a big money fee. Paddy went to Derby. You know, Tommy went to Watford. It was unrecognisable probably another season on. That group of players was all gone, disappeared. Fingers crossed for Southend. For Forest, obviously, Forest will be all right. Don't need to do fingers crossed. Forest will be all right, mate. Don't worry. But this to see Southend hopefully, you know, continue their start to season and see it through.
Yeah, amen to that. Thanks so much, Jace. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome, guys.
Great stuff. Cheers, Jason. All the best. Cheers.
And you. Bye-bye.
Well, have some of that. And a huge thank you there to Mr. Jason Lee. And, well, he has got his own podcast, so please be sure to go and search that one out. He's over on Twitter at Absolutely Pod, or on Instagram at the Absolutely Podcast. And please check out his website as well, where it's absolutely.co.uk. It is a great pod there. And once again, huge thanks to Jason Lee for joining us. And I can't wait to get him back on again soon.
Yeah, that was a brilliant little interview there, Paul. Thanks for doing that. And we are going to have the full version of that, like usual. These things sometimes can end up being kind of quite lengthy. So we'll put out, we've included a short clipping of it in this podcast, but we'll have the full thing later on in the week.
Huzzah.
Let's have a little break. It's that time of the show again where we look forward to the next game in Paul's previews.
We're going to lose.
Is that it?
Yep, cheers. Thanks for listening. Ta-ra, everyone. Bye-bye.
Well, probably the trickiest game of the season so far. You don't be so pessimistic, Paul. You're usually so positive about these things, but it's an uphill battle, isn't it, against Chesterfield at home this Saturday?
Well, we do like challenges, and you want to be playing against top teams, don't you? And this is certainly a test. The Chesterfield, well, they're 5 points clear at the top. They've only lost once this season. They've won 15. Drawing 2, scoring a colossal 47 in goals. It's not even Christmas yet. And they've only conceded 24. Their away record is insane. In the 9 they've played, they've won 7, drew 1, and just lost that solitary game. Scoring 20, conceding 11. I mean, you look at their top line. I mean, what is Will Grigg doing in the National League? I don't know. But he's like 9 goals in 17 games.
Is he getting on a bit?
He's only 32.
Okay.
You know, but yeah. I mean, what a signing for Chesterfield. I mean, what a signing for the league. I mean, you do want these top players in these divisions. It just goes to show how competitive this league is. And when you look at all their strikers, really, you've got Quigley, scored 6 in 14. Cole Clough's hit 5. Mandeville's on the scoring as well.
So getting goals from around the pitch.
Yeah.
And just going to be a real tricky assignment. But, Paul, records are there to be broken, aren't they?
Well, when you look at exactly that, and then when you look at, I mean, the Altrincham game was a bit of a hiccup, but when, you know, at home to the top teams, we do fancy ourselves. They concede as well, don't forget, on the road to Chesterfield, you know, and anything can happen in football.
Yeah.
And we want to be bouncing back. Roots Hall isn't the nicest places to come. And, you know, like I say, they're only 5 points clear at the top. Everyone's playing catch up. And, you know, I can't see them going the whole season just drawing a couple of games and losing one. So they will be dropping points.
Yeah.
And, well, what better place to do it than down in the south coast in Southend.
Nice. Well, yeah, looking forward to the game. We're all going to be there. It should be a big one. And, hopefully see some of your listeners there as well.
Absolutely.
There we have it, another episode of Shrimperscast done and dusted. Big thanks to you, Paul, for joining me in Shrimpers Towers today.
Always a pleasure, never a chore. And, huge thanks to our guests as well, Mr. Cllr Matt Dent, Jason Lee, and, of course, our man in the stand, Pip, legend.
Yeah, big thanks to all those guys for helping us make this podcast happen. All there is to say is make sure you like, subscribe, follow, leave us a little comment, leave us a little review. Massive thank you to everyone out there listening to Shrimperscast, and we'll see you all next week. Up the Blues.
Up the Blues.